Hey guys, welcome back to my Let's Play of Sonic 06 for the PlayStation 3. Last time, we completed Sonic's story. We completed the best story. And now it is time to go to the complete opposites. Not only back to the beginning, but because it is now time to play with my least favourite of the main characters, the new boy, Silver the Hedgehog. And so, let us begin!
This world was devastated before I was born. A harsh, bleak place where we live in eternal darkness. Life is a struggle, and people live without hope. How did this happen? No one will answer me directly, but they always point to the flames. They burn away at my world, destroying everything in their path. They come from an eternal life form that we cannot truly defeat, the flames of disaster known as Iblis.
Silver!
Blaze, what's wrong?
He's appeared again!
No folks, your eyes do not deceive you. Blaze the cat, who was introduced just a year ago, just 364 days before this game came out, is now from the future. Forget everything you know about her being from another dimension. Actually, don't. This is the only game that says that she's from the future. Because this game was actually going to be a reboot to the series, so the characters no longer have their backstory, and as such, Blaze is now from the future. Well, I would react pretty negatively to this anyway, but the thing is, she was only introduced a year before this game came out. So why change her backstory so quickly? Because I would have thought that by the time Sonic Rush was out, Sonic 06 was already in development. So why change it? Why change it so soon? But anyway, it is now time to play as Silver the Hedgehog. And while Blaze is busy getting glitchy there, let me explain Silver to you. Okay, so we already got a taste of Silver in Sonic's Kingdom Valley, but now we get to be in full control of him. He is not as fast as Sonic. He can get hit much more easily than Sonic. He has no homing attack. He does jump higher. I do like that he can jump higher. And as the Duke of Soliana's spirit is telling us, by pressing the jump button in the air, Silver can hover. That was a car. For that tornado is still carrying cars. But you have until the action gauge runs out, because for Silver the action gauge actually has programming. So if you jump on top of the crates or various other objects, hold R1, you can make it levitate. You can only go to a certain height, but you can also jump off of it while it's falling. By continually pressing the button when you're doing this glide, you can do whatever this is. It's slower, but it gets you much further. Watch out! I only sometimes avoid those. Press R1 near any crates as well as certain other objects and you can pick them up. You can put them down with the R1 button. You don't need to hold the button, just as long as you press it. That is enough. The more the gauge won't go down, it will only go down the more objects you pick up. Press the square button to throw them, and this is how Silver defeats enemies. Throwing objects. Which works well for the small ones, but you do have a problem with the big ones, because there will be a lot of times where you throw an object, it will hit something, bounce right off of them, and do no damage at all. I don't know what causes that. Sometimes even when you even throw these explosive crates, it won't always do damage, which is really annoying. Yeah, this game's gravity is still pretty bad, regardless of what you try. Anyway, yeah, Silver is quite painfully slow, unfortunately. You can knock this thing down. It's supposed to hit the enemies. It doesn't always work. You can never be sure where it's going, because look at that gravity. And this is the other way to attack the enemies. If you get right next to them, which will most likely result in you getting hurt, either because you just ended up getting too close or simply because the enemy moved. But if you got to get right next to them so Silver can pimp slap them, and that will stun them. When they're stunned, you can pick up the enemies. Once Silver has grabbed an enemy, it is dead. Regardless of what happens, you can let go of it, but it will be dead. And yeah, that's pretty much how you attack with Silver. His psychic abilities really, they're interesting at first, but only for so long. You have these little circle things, just press the R1 button on them. It will summon platforms, basically. Whoa! And that is why I hate this game's gravity. Yes, fall, Blaze, fall. I don't like Sonic Rush, so I do not care. Okay, so Silver's first level is Crisis City. Due to some audio issues, I never really got to say much that was clear in Crisis City. So allow me to say them now. Firstly, best stage theme in the entire series, bar none. Yep, there are some that are close contenders, but still not that close. Okay, so you saw I stunned the enemy there. There are you can sometimes come across these blue crates. Destroying those will send out like a shock of electricity everywhere, and that will stun nearby enemies. So, secondly, new kinds of enemies that were introduced in this level in Sonic's story. So you're introduced to them in Crisis City regardless. I mean, you even if you decided not to complete Sonic's story, this is the first level with Silver. You have to complete Crisis City to unlock Shadow. So this will be the level that introduces you to the second type of enemies, and those are the Solaris monsters. Sonic Unleashed has two types of monsters. Two types of enemies, I should say. Eggman's robots and Solaris monsters. The Solaris monsters come in two colors. There are the orange ones, which... Okay, I don't know what happened there. There was one of the enemies was shooting at me, and I just clipped through the thing when I got hurt there. So I now need to go all the way back up again. So, you have the one that was shooting at me there. There was a sort of phoenix-like enemy, and that was the Iblis Taker. They're really not much of a threat. Sonic and Shadow can homing attack on their projectiles. Silver can't because he can't homing attack. They'll fly around. They often come in groups, and they can dash at you. They don't always. Sometimes they just hover in place like these ones will, but they can dash at you. The sort of dog creatures, I'm not really sure how you describe them. They're known as Iblis Biters. Now, they're my least favourite of all of these enemies, because, as you've seen, they can just burst right out of the ground without any given warning. The big ones, the big worm-like ones, so-called the Iblis Worms, they will also do that, but they at least give you a warning. There'll be a cloud of dust, and while it doesn't really warn you of the shockwave that accompanies them coming out of the ground, you at least are given a warning. I'm just going to let them fall to their deaths. But you are, at the very least, given a warning, but the Iblis Biters don't. So you could potentially kill a group of enemies and then there'll be a second wave, and you'll realise that because you'll be standing right where the Iblis Biter will jump out of the ground without any given warning and take a cheap hit because of it. I also hate their attacks, and they will often do it when I'm jumping above them and when I land and I can't see them, because they have a sort of fire breath attack, and they do that attack for quite a long time. And the final type of Solaris monster is the Iblis Golem, which is the really big muscular ones. They have a shield that can protect them from Silver's psychic attacks. Their only weak spot is through their head. You would have seen after they do one or two attacks, a small light will appear on top of their head. That is their weak point. You don't have to attack, you can still attack them when their weak point isn't exposed, but it does make them much easier to beat, where the other Iblis Biter did. Oh well. Their attacks include throwing this rock at you, which has a much larger hitbox than you actually think. And they can also slam the ground, and obviously they're big. All big guys, except for Big, have to have a shockwave for some reason. I don't want to get that silver medal. That's for later. But anyway, we are now in control of the first of the Amigo characters for Silver, and the best of the Amigo characters in the game, Blaze the Cat. Now in Sonic Rush, Blaze was very similar to Sonic, and that can be said here. By holding down the square button for a bit and then releasing it, we can perform a fire spin. It lasts for a good amount of time. You can cancel it out by pressing the square button again. And it is very useful against enemies. Except for when they do that fire breath attack. I hate that attack so much. It wiped out one of them apparently. Yeah, these guys are the Iblis worms. Their mouths are their weak points, but I can never be sure when they're actually exposing it. But again, they don't take too many hits, so you don't really need to wait. That's what I meant. They just pop right out of the ground like that, and I can never tell when they're going to do that. Blaze has a very useful double jump, which is awesome. She has her own version of the homing attack, but obviously the double jump is mapped to the same button as the regular jump. So you activate this by pressing square. You can do it on the ground. It's a bit hard to control and maneuver Blaze when she's doing it, so don't do it too much. I would only really do it when there's an enemy or a spring around, because she'll automatically home in on them. And she's just as fast as Sonic, as opposed to Silver. So she's more acrobatic. She has a very useful fire spin. She has a double jump. She has her own version of the homing attack, and she's fast. But being an Amigo character, we don't get to play as Blaze very often. We're going to be spending most of Silver's story, as you'd expect, as Silver. As well as a few occasions where we have to switch to a certain other Amigo character. And of course, at the moment, Silver is really quite vulnerable. He will get one upgrade later on, which is incredibly useful. But for now, Silver is really not very good. I'm actually going through a small section of Sonic. Is this part of Sonic's level? I'm not sure. It probably just looks like it. There are a few times where the levels do look a bit similar to each other. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what's going on here. So we're now in a unique section of Crisis City. Just now we went backwards through Sonic's skyscraper section. You can't really stun Iblis takers very easily. There will be times where they get stunned and I'm never sure how. I don't even realise that they're stunned. They don't fall to the ground or anything, but this is what I mean. He has a shield. That is his core, the glowing bit on the top of his head. That is how you kill them. That tornado is still carrying cars. But that is how Silver stuns Iblis Taker. Sorry, Iblis Golems. And that is the issue with Iblis Takers at the moment. Again, Silver will get a much better attack later on, but we're not going to be getting that until level 6. We're only in the first level, and the thing is, while most of Sonic's levels aren't very long, many of Silver's are. Silver has a lot of long levels. In fact, his final level can take, probably on your first time, will take you a good 20 minutes to complete. Which is even longer than all of the levels in Sonic Heroes. And that game had some long levels, even during some of its extra missions. Silver doesn't glow when he has the invincibility, but I can assure you it's working. Where'd the Iblis Golem go? He vanished! Oh well. That's good and bad, because it also cost me points. And I really need to be moving right now. I think that invincibility is still going. I can't hear. Okay, there we go. Alright, but thankfully, Crisis City for Silver isn't too long. I say that, I've been here for over 10 minutes. But we are almost to the end. Watch out for these guys. Ah! That is another thing they can do. They can jump. You can actually stun them in mid-air. It's pretty funny to look at. Yeah, these guys will shoot fireballs. I'm not sure if I even damaged him, which is what I was saying earlier. Silver can catch those. You can throw them back. You can do the same with the big ones from the Iblis Golems. There are purple variations of the Solaris monsters as well. They tend to go by other names. And they're pretty much the same. A couple of them have different attacks, but they look exactly the same apart from being a different colour. I don't think that's quite there. Oh, no, it wasn't. I just needed a few more rings, but no. And the purple ones also take twice as many hits, but really they're not much different. So, that is the first level with Silver. It took me 10 minutes. Let that be a sign of things to come with Silver. Thankfully, we can get much more into his gameplay later on, but that, again, that won't happen until level 6. And we got quite a few lengthy levels, a few short levels as well, but quite a few lengthy levels before then as well. So, it is now time to meet the main enemy of Silver's story, Iblis, the Flames of Disaster.
Come on, you monster!
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this creature is that tapeworm that we fought after Flame Core for Sonic, and will do for Shadow. So Iblis is pretty much the main enemy in Silver's campaign. He is known as the Flames of Disaster, so at some point he was released from Elise's body. We don't know when. Apparently it happens after the egg carrier crashed, but we clearly saw that there was no Iblis. So I don't know when this thing was released. I don't know, maybe somebody was dissecting her body, the fluids came out, and as such, Iblis was released. And I always took it because Silver has apparently fought this guy many times. So, try and catch these rocks if you can, doesn't always work. And this is where you really notice the issue. Where you throw things at the enemies, including the bosses, and it doesn't do anything. You see the projectile that you throw break apart, but nothing happens, and for some reason Silver decided not to aim at Iblis' head. Because that's what we're doing. Silver, aim at his head. Oh, now you do it when he moves away. Thank you, Silver. Obviously this is the first boss for Silver's story, so Iblis isn't very hard. You need to aim the projectiles at the armor on his head. I know, it doesn't sound right. Oh, I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah, sometimes Iblis, his attacks include throwing rocks at you, as we saw before. He can also, well, as we've seen, just throw a building onto you. It won't destroy the platform or anything like that. That comes later. But Silver has fought Iblis many times. We see him sink into the lava. So what I always take it as is that Iblis will then gain a new form every time. And so that tapeworm thing is probably Iblis' first form. Did that do any damage then? I don't think it did. And unfortunately I'm not going to get hurt. No, okay. We can get away. We still have the wonderful music. Oh, there wasn't even a shadow there. The shadow disappeared. That wasn't fair. But yeah. It's quite easy to run out of projectiles here, unfortunately. You can try and catch as many of these as you can. Then try and throw them at Iblis' head when Silver actually aims at Iblis' head. Thank you, Silver. Yeah. That was somehow the very useless armor. You wouldn't think that would be how we damage him, but it is. But I'm guessing the reason that this one is referred to as Iblis Phase 1 is because it's to avoid confusion, because we fight Iblis Phase 2 midway through Sonic and Shadow's stories-ish. But we fight this at the beginning of Silver's story. That fire breath attack is nothing to worry about. This is what can happen though. It's easy to run out of debris. So you gotta wait around until Iblis does some sort of an attack that can give you some pieces of debris and hope he gives you enough. And I can never be sure where he's actually going to drop these things. Like that. I can never be sure where those things are actually going to land. Still love the music though. And that's it. Probably not going to get the S rank. I think that took a bit too long. I don't have any rings. So that's probably not an S rank. But obviously, as I said, Silver's fought this thing many times. So, who knows? We've seen a cutscene in Sonic's story that had Silver in it. We're going to see that cutscene again in a moment. So I'm assuming that Iblis has been defeated. He's returning to Flame Core, where he's going to begin to regrow his body in that tapeworm form. That is simply my guess. Whether it's true, well, we're about to find out. Did I get an S rank? Yeah, I got an S rank. I was just fast enough. Okay. Perfect! Both Silver and Shadow say that when they get an S rank. There's no need to worry about being too short on rings here. There's no bonus power-ups for Silver. You're never in any fear. There's no gems. Silver and Shadow don't get nearly the amount of power-ups that Sonic has. Nowhere near. But that's Silver's first boss. So it is now time for us to meet... Well, we technically saw him in Sonic's story, but it is now time for us to meet the true villain of Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. Shadow the Hedgehog. Wait. What?